going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Sports Doctor Spock, Mickey Coleman. Welcome back to the Sports Doctor Spock here on YouTube. And today we're going to talk about the origins of organized crime. So let's get right into the video right now.
Hey everyone, today we are diving into the shadowy world of organized crime, tracing its roots and understanding how some of these notorious figures got started. Organized crime is a business built on broken laws. This is the story of how that business boomed in America, forging an empire in the shadows of society. We will journey back to a time of great change, when new laws and old desires created the perfect storm for a new kind of criminal. We will meet the men who saw this opportunity and seized it with both hands, using brains bullets ambition. This tale is not just about gangsters. It is about the birth of an American underworld, a hidden system of power and profit beneath the nation's nose. Think of it not as a single act, but as a continuous, structured enterprise dedicated to illegal activities. A group working together with a clear hierarchy, like a dark mirror of a legitimate company. They have bosses, managers, workers. Their goal is to make money, and lots of it, by providing goods and services the law forbids, but people still want. They protect operations with bribery, intimidation, brutal violence. Unlike a lone thief, these groups are built to last, creating their own rules and codes in a dangerous world they helped create. Our story begins in the early 20th century, the nation flexing its industrial muscles as cities drew millions seeking a better life. That really set the stage. Immigrants from Europe poured into crowded urban centers, bringing hopes, cultures, struggles. In these packed, impoverished neighborhoods, law and order could feel distant. That vacuum let alternative power structures take root, offering a twisted form of justice employment community. This essay traces the path from chaotic street gangs to sophisticated syndicates that would dominate for decades. We will examine how one law meant to moralize the country fueled an explosion in criminal wealth and power. We will put faces to the infamous names. Old world traditionalists, new world visionaries. Through their stories, we will see the American mob as a complex social and economic phenomenon that left a permanent mark. Imagine a sepia-tone photograph of a
Now, when these people came over here, a lot of those people from Europe, they came over here with pennies. So what they needed to do is create an economic base. And this video will tell you exactly how they created that base in just 1 second.
Crowded New York City street in the early 1900s, push carts, tenements, and a mix of people. The game changed forever on January 17, 1920. On that day, the 18th Amendment went into effect, officially banning the manufacture, sale, transportation of alcoholic beverages. This era, known as Prohibition, was born from a moral crusade to cure society of the evils of drink. Its supporters believed it would lead to a more sober, virtuous, productive nation. Instead, it did the exact opposite. It handed the keys to a billion-dollar industry to the very criminal gangs that were already lurking in the shadows.
So, back in the 1920s, the drug everybody was getting rich off of wasn't cocaine, it wasn't heroin, it wasn't marijuana, but it was booze. A lot of people made a lot of money because they could provide alcohol where alcohol was very much illegal for it to be consumed or bought or sold by the general public, at least in the United States. So, you might buy a paper off a newsstand and you might be like, you got a little something, half a penny or something under there for this is just amount of money. I know you got it under there. And they might be like, yeah, I got you. It's so much money. Because you couldn't openly sell it like now. Or you would go to a restaurant and they'd be like, if you got a half a pint of that good that stuff, we'd appreciate it. And they'd be like, no, we don't sell it. I know you got it in the bag. This money. hold on a second, I'll be right back. That's kind of how it was. Or you have illegal spots, illegal speakeasies where they would go and openly sell booze. But if the cops came in there, everybody was going to jail.
The law did not stop people from wanting to drink. It simply made drinking illegal and therefore profitable. Suddenly, small-time street gangs had a golden opportunity laid at their feet. The demand for alcohol was immense, and they were the only ones willing and able to supply it. This business, known as bootlegging, was far more lucrative than anything they had ever imagined. Smuggling from Canada, smuggling from the Caribbean, hijacking industrial alcohol to redistill it, setting up secret breweries and distilleries in hidden locations. They created a vast and complex supply chain, complete with fleets of trucks, fast boats to outrun the Coast Guard networks of warehouses to store their illicit cargo. This was no longer petty crime. This was big business. With the explosion of money from bootlegging came an explosion in power and violence. Rival gangs fought bloody turf wars to control the most profitable territories. The streets of cities like Chicago ran red with conflicts as gangsters battled for control. To protect their operations, crime bosses used their newfound wealth to corrupt the system from the inside out. They put police officers, judges, politicians on their payroll, ensuring they could operate with impunity. This widespread corruption eroded public trust in the law and made the mob bosses seem untouchable. Picture a black and white photograph of federal agents smashing barrels of illegal beer with axes during a raid. It is striking, you know. In this chaotic and violent world, certain figures rose to the top, men whose ambition and ruthlessness set them apart. One of the most powerful of the old guard was Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masseria. An immigrant from Sicily, Masseria built a formidable empire in New York City during the 1920s.
Good old Joe the Boss. Joe Masseria was one of the very first big-time head mob bosses.
Was a classic mustache Pete, an old-school mobster who believed in tradition, brute force, loyalty based on shared Italian heritage. His power was rooted in his control over rackets in Manhattan's Lower East Side. Masseria was famously resistant to working with non-Italians and fiercely protective of his turf, a trait that would ultimately lead to a bloody war for control of the city's underworld. In the Midwest, a different kind of mob boss was making headlines. Alphonse Al Capone became the public face of organized crime in America. Based in Chicago, Capone built a massive bootlegging empire that reportedly earned him tens of millions of dollars a year. Unlike the secretive bosses of New York, Capone was a media celebrity. He courted the press, gave to charities, and presented himself as a simple businessman providing a public service. But behind this charismatic facade was a man of extreme brutality, responsible for
Yeah, see, we get back to the video. See, Al Capone is the reason why a lot of people, when they become big time and they're doing illegal shit, they don't want to be known. Because he went to jail because he was making that tens of millions of dollars tax-free. He had legitimate businesses, but he was making so much money, he probably couldn't launder it right. Or launder all that money right. He was making tens of millions of dollars selling booze and doing other illegal shit in the 1920s. The 1920s, he was making this type of money. Okay, and now he's the reason why a lot of people be like, I don't want people to know who the fuck I am and I got all this money. Because that was a part of the reason why he went to jail. Because the people were starting to figure out, how can we catch Al Capone? Taxes. Al Capone, instead of being kind of low-key, was basically a movie star doing all the wild shit he was doing.
Countless acts of violence, most notoriously the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Capone's reign demonstrated how a crime boss could achieve immense power and public notoriety simultaneously. While Capone grabbed the headlines, a brilliant young strategist in New York was plotting a revolution. Charles "Lucky" Luciano was a new breed of gangster.
Luciano.
He was a visionary who understood that the old ways of the mustache
Salvatore
Pete's, with their
Luciano.
endless destructive turf
whatever you
wars,
wanna call
were
him.
bad for business. Luciano believed in organization, efficiency, and cooperation. His key insight was that organized crime should be run like a modern corporation, with a board of directors to settle disputes and maximize profits for everyone. This forward-thinking approach would lead him to orchestrate one of the most significant power shifts in American mob history, forever changing its structure. Working alongside Luciano was his childhood friend and financial genius, Meyer Lansky. Lansky was not Italian and therefore could never be a made man in the traditional mafia, but his intellect made him one of the most powerful and respected figures in the underworld. Known as the mob's accountant, Lansky was the master of money. He pioneered complex money laundering schemes and saw the enormous potential in expanding gambling operations in the United States and later in Cuba. Where others saw violence as the primary tool, Lansky saw numbers, risk, and profit. His quiet...
Yeah, Maya, I believe, was Jewish. And another friend of Luciano and Maya, Bugsy Siegel. Benny Bugsy Siegel. The guy who basically put together the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. If you've ever been to the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, it is Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano, and other gangster themed. If you were ever to go there. But gambling was another way they created an economic base. But let's get back into this.
Business-like demeanor and financial acumen provided the stable foundation upon which Luciano's new criminal empire would be built. Bootlegging was the engine that powered the mob's meteoric rise, but it was just one part of a diverse and profitable portfolio of criminal activities. The mob bosses of the era understood the importance of diversification, just like any legitimate business leader. When Prohibition eventually ended, they needed other revenue streams to maintain their wealth and power. They applied the lessons learned from the liquor trade to a range of other illegal ventures, running them with a cold, calculated efficiency that ensured a steady flow of cash into their coffers. These operations were the pillars that supported the entire criminal structure, turning gangs into lasting empires. Gambling was a cornerstone of their business model. Horse races, sporting events, numbers games. They operated secret, high-stakes casinos in back rooms and hidden locations, catering to a clientele that ranged from wealthy businessmen to ordinary workers.
Everybody gambles.
The beauty of gambling, from the mob's perspective, was that the odds were always in their favor.
Still
It
are.
provided a consistent, predictable income stream with relatively low overhead. Meyer Lansky, in particular, was instrumental in professionalizing the mob's gambling interests, ensuring they were run fairly enough to keep customers coming back, but crooked enough to guarantee a hefty profit. Prostitution and the control of the sex trade was another dark but highly lucrative enterprise.
Yeah, I believe that before he became big time, that one of his original crimes, as far as Luciano, was pimping. He was a pimp. So he understood he had something kind of to fall back on once they legalized alcohol.
Crime syndicates managed brothels and extorted money from independent sex workers, demanding a cut of their earnings in exchange for protection. This protection was, of course, a threat in disguise, protection from the very gangsters who were making the demand. This was one of the mob's most exploitative and cruel rackets, preying on vulnerable individuals and using violence and intimidation to maintain absolute control. The profits were substantial, and the business was run with a chilling lack of regard for the human cost.
They did it with other small
treated as
businesses
just
too.
another commodity to be managed for financial gain. Perhaps the most insidious of their activities was racketeering. This was a broad category of crime that involved infiltrating legitimate industries and unions. The mob would use threats and violence to force businesses to pay for protection, which was nothing more than extortion. The early years of the mob were defined by chaos and bloodshed. In New York, the Castellammares War raged between 1930 and 1931, a brutal conflict pitting Joe Masseria's faction against Salvatore Maranzano. It was the culmination of the old world mentality, a destructive struggle for absolute power that left dozens dead and drew the attention of law enforcement and the public. For Lucky Luciano, it was a disaster. The constant infighting was dangerous and terrible for business. He realized organized crime needed a more stable structure to thrive in America. With Meyer Lansky, he moved to end the war and reshape the underworld. He orchestrated the assassinations of Masseria and Maranzano in 1931. With the old guard gone, Luciano could implement his vision. He refused the title, Boss of All Bosses. Instead, he proposed a national crime syndicate run like a corporation.
See, he was all about money.
A board of directors. That body became known as the Commission. The Commission was revolutionary. It was made of the heads of the most powerful crime families in New York, in other major cities, including Chicago. Its purpose was corporate. Immediate disputes between families approved joint ventures, set rules and policies. The Commission decided territories, sanctioned hits on troublesome members, and forged nationwide alliances. It replaced constant warfare with negotiation and corporate-style governance. Violence remained a tool, but one used strategically with board approval. Luciano's structure marked the birth of the modern American mafia. Warring gangs became a cohesive, powerful national cartel. By cooperating and sharing spoils, the families focused on making money. The Commission let the mob operate discreetly and efficiently, expanding into new industries and territories without internal warfare. The era of Capone, Luciano, and the birth of the Commission solidified organized crime as a permanent fixture in the American landscape. While law enforcement, led by figures like J. Edgar Hoover at the FBI, eventually began to make inroads, the structures put in place were incredibly resilient. The end of Prohibition did not end the mob. It merely encouraged them to further invest in gambling, loan sharking, labor racketeering. The syndicates they built were designed to outlast any single leader. When one boss was imprisoned or killed, the system allowed for a new one to rise and take his place, ensuring the business of crime continued with minimal disruption.
That's why they were
the legacy of this era extends far beyond the criminal underworld itself. It has become deeply woven into American popular culture. The image of the mobster, the sharp suit, the fedora, the quiet menace, has been endlessly romanticized by Hollywood. Movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, and television shows like The Sopranos have transformed the...
Sopranos was a very good show. What's your favorite movie? Mine happens to be Casino.
These brutal criminals into complex, almost tragic anti-heroes. These stories captivate us with their themes of family, loyalty, betrayal, and the dark side of the American dream. They present a world with its own strict code of honor, making it easy to forget the real-world victims and the societal corrosion caused by their actions. This cultural fascination has created a powerful and enduring mythology. The mob story has become a modern American epic, a tale of outsiders who built their own kingdoms with ambition and violence. We are drawn to the power, the wealth, and the forbidden freedom they seem to represent. This romanticized image, however, often obscures the grim reality. The real mob was not about honor, it was about greed. Its foundation was not loyalty, but fear. The violence was not cinematic. It was brutal and devastating, destroying countless lives and corrupting institutions that were meant to protect the public. Even today, the lessons from that formative era still resonate. Organized crime has evolved, with new groups and new rackets, cybercrime, international trafficking. Yet the fundamental principles remain the same. Criminal enterprises continue to thrive by exploiting societal demands, corrupting systems, and using violence to protect their interests. The story of the rise of the American mob is more than just a history of long-dead gangsters. It is a timeless cautionary tale about how easily the pursuit of order can be twisted, how quickly illicit power can grow in the cracks of society, and how the shadows cast by the past continue to shape the present.
Very, very, very good video. What do you guys think of this video, and what do you guys know in the comment section about organized crime?